When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
Hi, this is Ben Green from The Athletic FC. The podcast you're about to listen to is brought to you by Hotels.com. As a Hotels.com member, you save up to 20% on hundreds of thousands of hotels and earn rewards on every single stay, which means the trips you're taking now help pay for the ones you're already dreaming about. And unlike some other places, there are no blackout dates, so when you want to travel, your rewards are ready to go. So, the next time you're planning a work trip or a getaway, make sure to book it at Hotels.com and start earning rewards. Hotels.com. It's all in the name.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Interpro Show, your home for all things Irish rugby. Joining me tonight, we have a rotation of guests in Connacht fan James Doyle, News of the Team Leinster fan Cian Willer, and Ben, who will be along soon. Let's start the show. Hello and welcome. So this is a slightly changed up cast. It's me hosting, so don't expect things to be entirely on the tracks. But we'll do our very best in Caolan's absence on this very hot day in Dublin. We are celebrating a win. Leinster back-to-back champions in the URC, finishing the season on some silverware. Cian, 36-7 win over the Bulls in Croke Park. What do we think of that?
Biggest winning margin in a URC final in history. It's not a bad way to go, is it? Against a 15 that had 12 Bulls and 12 of the Bulls are in Erasmus's box squad. I mean, Leinster made it look easy for most of it to some extent, but like that was a tough match. That was a physical game. That fast start. Ackerman said specifically before the pre-final that a fast Leinster lead would be fatal, and it proved to be the case. That Pollard slip in behind himself, Tommy O'Brien pounced on it, and that was how it started, and it just seemed to keep going. Kind of Leinster managed to get at a couple of key parts of their game and just dismantle their ability to score tries. The kicking game was huge. 13 kicks in play from Prendergast with at least 4 seconds on the hang time on each of the bombs he put up, and you could see that in the confidence of the aerial battle from Leinster. They seemed to win all of those 50-50 balls, all of those scraps, even when it wasn't clean, seemed to go Leinster's way. And then you had Keenan on an absolute worldie. I think if Prendergast hadn't done the track back and the try that he got as well, I think Keenan probably would have been nailed on for player of the game. Absolutely unhandleable. Osborne and Ioane were solid, tight. It looked like they had been playing together for years in the centres. Really, really, really confident, complete performance from them there. The line out was another, like, the scrum, they managed to keep it quiet. That was great. That was really important, and they did well with it. With Porter out, it was something I was really worried about before the game. Kerr and Furlong starting. Furlong was a surprise for me. Wasn't expected to see him on the team sheet. Kerr, what a story! But he really did brilliantly on the day. Put himself about the pitch as well. Both sides of the ball, was offering to carry, and was a couple of decent carries in there. But to have locked down, relatively speaking, that scrum until well into the second half when they started getting scrum penalties, that was huge. But then part of that again, that platforms that Bulls absolutely need to score off of their line out and maul. Deegan was a man possessed. He seemed to spend more time in the air than the seagulls that were flying around. They just seemed to know where the ball was going every single time. I don't know if it was down to research in advance or they were reading it live or a combination of the two, but just absolutely pinpoint took apart the Bulls line out on a day when they really needed it. And then there's the Bulls discipline. That 2 yellows for deliberate knock-ons, that tempo and the flat passing lines were just too tempting for them. I know they score, I think, more tries from their own half than any other team in the URC. But despite that, I think the temptation was too much for them. And yeah, that tempo, I mean, it showed throughout. There was a lot of tired players by the end of that game, as well as the yellow cards. And then you had Wilco Lowe losing his lunch and then tackling I think Lowe into it, or it was Van der Fleer. He was tackling Van der Fleer into his own vomit. If that doesn't sum up the day the Bulls had, I don't know what does.
Yeah, it was a rough one. I think that might fall under some kind of biological warfare tenet of the Geneva Convention on that one. But just to move to you, James, just reaching off what Keane said there, the Bulls, like this is their fourth final in the URC, four losses, one in Pretoria, one other in South Africa, and now two up in Ireland. This was just very poor for them. Like what can you say for the team that gets that close so consistently? And I know the irony in that statement, but are just really struggling to get across that line.
Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me on. I'm on enemy territory right now, but I promise I will be the biggest man from Blackrock you will see. For the Bulls, it's ironic because I'm going to compare them to another one of their South African counterparts in the Lions. Back when they were in Super Rugby, the Lions played in 3 Super Rugby finals in a row and lost all 3 of them to the Crusaders. All of them were at home as well, so they had the home advantage for those games, and they were firmly second best to a generational Crusaders side, but they were firmly second best. It's the same thing with the Bulls, but in the URC. The first final they made against the Stormers, they should have won that game. The Stormers really edged them out in what was a dullard affair. And then, obviously the Glasgow game was their one as well to win, and Glasgow came in and shocked the whole of South Africa. And then these 2 games in Croker against Leinster, I think both share one common trait, that the Bulls couldn't get any foothold into the game, and Leinster played their own type of rugby and controlled proceedings. Like when I watched the game back, Leinster really just looked in command. Cian mentioned the kick chase and the entourage they had to the kick chases. I mean, Leinster were winning nearly every single area of battle. It was a massacre under the high ball, and watching the Bulls play, they were kind of stumbling around the park. They didn't have any game plan. Usually the Bulls use their big forwards to push on and then try and pull it out to their backs to create some space and use their pace because they have a lot of speedsters in their backline. I mean, look at not even the Springboks. I mean, even the likes of, say, Jaco Williams, who I know wasn't playing today, but even the likes of Stavino Jacobs as well and Harold Voster, quick lads, and they couldn't get hands on ball because Leinster didn't allow them. Leinster didn't allow the Bulls to just play their own rugby. And bless Ambrose Papier, because he tried, and he really tried to muster up something. Like he was box kicking, he was trying to create again like those frantic, 22 meters from your own 22 meters going in, scoring a try. He was trying everything, bless him. And I think that's why he's in the Springboks, is because he can do everything. But nothing was going the Bulls' way. And then the discipline, as Cian mentioned, in the first minute of a cup final, you don't do what Caolan Moody did, which is have a stupid, for all intents and purposes, intentional knock on, put yourself on the back foot immediately, give Leinster a chance in your own 22 to get a score, on which they did. There's just some really silly, rational decisions. I think the Bulls maybe got a little bit too caught up in the occasion of it's a final. We've been here before. We've lost many a time. And it's been a while since they have won a trophy. Like the Bulls are one of the best, his most historic teams in South Africa. They haven't won a trophy since must have been the Brian Habana days, and that's going back to Super Rugby, like middle 2000s for Super Rugby. So for the Bulls, just couldn't get into the game and couldn't defend either. And I'm going to call him out because his second half performance was very good going forward. But Caolan Moody, defensively, and I think it was the James Lowe try, or it must have been either the Lowe try or the Ioane try, but Keenan created, it was the one where Gibson Park did the quick line out. Flat ball by Prendergast to Keenan. Great clear out by James Lowe. It was the Ioane try, sorry. Great clear out by James Lowe. And then Keenan Moody tries to turn back on himself and he stumbles and he falls and just allows Hugo Keenan through. And I thought Keenan was fantastic. Really, really good from him. Don't take any credit away from Leinster's performance. I thought they were very, very good, very regimented, very system-orientated approach, which is what you expect from a Leinster team, what you expect from a Leo Cullen side. It was brilliant from Leinster, but the Bulls will, like, no doubt be kicking and screaming because this is, as you mentioned, 4 finals and 4 finals where they've lost. And the last 2, they've come to Croker and run out of ideas very, very early on.
Yeah, no, it's dramatic, and it's interesting now as well that we've come to the end of all the club seasons now. I suppose that to have these blowouts in finals, and it's Leinster have now been on the receiving end and the delivering end of one. It'd be interesting to see how that progresses now that we're going to the international season. It seems like attack is in the ascendancy, where defense, certainly under Jacques Nienaber and Sean Edwards over the last few years, kind of held sway for a while there, and South Africa were able to win World Cups off the back of it. That now that attack seems to be the flavor of the day, and that's resulting in when a team has the edge, that results in a really massive scoreline in one direction. So I think it'll be interesting now to see if that translates over. Obviously, the test game is much tighter, it's much faster, and there's usually a little less room. So it'll be interesting to see if these players can then translate that kind of edge on up to the top. Um, Switching on back around, Keane, I was wondering, two selection choices from Leinster that stood out maybe at the start of this run in to the URC post Champions Cup, where Harry Byrne had led Leinster in, with Kieran Frawley deputising on the bench in that final. Leo Cullen pinned his colours to the Sam Prendergast mast. A lot of people had questions about that, and it seems like it's paid off. And to pair with that, Gary Ringrose should have been, if not for a head injury, a British and Irish Lion, and yet he shifted to the bench in favour of Ricky Ioane, who had a phenomenal game. So Ioane and Sam Prendergast, selection vindication for Leo Cullen, it would seem.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of questioning of those calls when the team sheets were announced. All right, well, I mean, less around Sam for just that team sheet, and Rico had played in the center as well in the semi-final. But yeah, both vindicated. It's hard to say where the Rico playing at center. To be honest, I think he kind of played himself into not being able to be left off the team sheet, and that happened to be at center. Um, his form was improving game on game as we got into the late end of the season. There was some serious worries about his performances early on in the season, and I think Leo himself said that Rico came to the club and was kind of in a rut, and that throughout the season he kind of fell back in love with the game. Now I don't know how much of that is for the bylines, but I'd hope to assume there's some truth to it because he certainly looked like it from the way he was playing. He seemed to enjoy it, and like when he's scoring tries, the lads are celebrating with him. They meant something, and looking at them afterwards, he was celebrating that win as much as any of the kind of Leinster mainstays. So yeah, I reckon his stint here, it means something to him, and he was willing to put it all out there. And he had a hell of a lot of work still to do to finish his try. I think he dragged 3 lads over the line with him, but he finished it, and that's what you get with Rico Ioane. He is a really good finisher from like 5-10 meters out. It's quite hard to stop him. He's quite kind of James Lowe-esque in that sense, but he's faster, frankly, still. As for Sam, look, the lad took a knock to his confidence, but I don't think anyone outside of camp really knew where he was at any given point in time. It was all supposition in the media, and Leo was in the best position to judge whether or not a player is in the right mindset, right frame of mind to be able to deliver on a big stage. And gave him his shot in the quarterfinal, and he produced, and again in the semi-final, and then in the final, that's probably his most complete performance in senior rugby so far, certainly for club. So absolutely justified after the fact. It could have gone wrong. It could have gone very wrong. You know, you lose a semi-final, you lose a final, and those questions, choices really come into sharp focus, as we well know from last year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think certainly the exclusion of Kieran Frawley, who, absent even the 10 conversation, has been such an excellent player for Leinster over the season. I think if he wasn't involved and then things didn't work out, there would have been questions there. Rico, I think he was such an interesting choice when he came to Leinster. I don't think anybody saw that one coming. It was very odd. Again, positionally didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And unlike Jordy Barrett, who was one of the best players in the world, probably the best in the world at his position when he came in. Rico wasn't that. As you said, he was in a rut, but he definitely played his way in, and I think I said it. I might have said it to yourselves at some point. In the last few weeks, you could kind of see the All Black hiding inside of him, and it came out every now and then. You're like, oh yeah, okay, I get where this comes from. His finish in that final certainly. Not to say Gary Ringers is a slouch, but I, for my sins, am also an Auckland Blues supporter, which is great fun if you love losing finals. And he's in my mind. He's always been a winger who can play 13 because of his speed. He has that pace. He has that
Yeah.
he has that nose for the line, and that finish was a great winger's finish. Like to know to step in the moment, you think, is the step really the right choice there? Or have you just? But he's got the pace to then hammer it and burst through the line. Yeah, he didn't come in as a hero to Leinster, but he's definitely leaving as you say, the players clearly like him, and based on the crowd around me, the supporters warm to him, which, considering the last time he had an interaction with Ireland, is pretty good going on his part. Um, for Sam, it was a punt, but it was a punt that paid off. And I don't know if I certainly felt at the end of that game, watching him throughout the thing, and then in the celebrations, he looked a bit pissed off. He looks like he's not let it go. What he feels like he's been through, and I'm sure it's not like a thing that's been done to him. So much has happened, and he has his own questions to answer. He's answered some of them today. There's still more to come, but yeah, I think he can be reasonably happy with how it's gone, and I think it's for him now to show that he's got more above the line than below the line, and to keep pushing with that. So yeah, we'll certainly see how he goes going from here. I think I'll say before we move on, contractually obliged to say, just a reminder to make sure to subscribe, get all the latest content here on the Global Gainline channel. And if you can share the show with one friend or even leave a comment, it makes a huge difference. We are still on the lookout for Connacht podcast presenters for our breakaway show, so get in touch if you're interested in that. James, come back around. It's big season for Leinster. Big finish to the season for Leinster. I suppose we can touch on um, how do we feel Leinster's season went, now that it's finished, and in light of that, what do we think about Leo Cullen and the end of an era?
I suppose Leo Cullen has come under a lot of, I say, unearned criticism because he's not the most blasé coach. He's not the most forward or out there coach. He doesn't play the swankiest of rugby. He's not this Fijian Pacific Islander sevens style of rugby. He's a very regimented guy. He was a very regimented player when he played for Leinster. I said before I came on and we started recording, 1,005 out or 6 out of 10 performances for Leinster throughout his career. That was the type of player that Leo Cullen was. That's the type of coach Leo Cullen is. He's a very regimented guy, always has this approach to rugby that is very much a stats based type of game. And I do think that he will go down as one of the greatest rugby coaches ever. Now, look, there's going to be a lot of kind of small clouds hanging over his time at Leinster. The fact that they've lost a lot of European finals, in definitely most recent years, and there were some of them that did get away from him. Some of them, like the one this year, that they did get a bit of a tonkin in. And I suppose this year, I'm going to actually say something. I think Leo Cullen did a good season with the circumstances he had because of the Lions tour. A lot of the usual first name Leinster players they weren't available for the beginning of the year, and you saw that Leinster had a bit of a hangover down in South Africa. And quite frankly, one thing I found really interesting was when Leinster played the second round of the season against the Bulls, I thought Sam Prendergast, and I could be completely wrong in this, I thought Prendergast played amazing, but some of the players you could tell weren't used to an environment in an arena of club high tier club rugby in South Africa in an arena like that at Pretoria in Loftus Veersfeld. And you could tell that there were other games as well that Leinster were just a little bit stop starting. Again, one that always comes to mind is the one away from home against Dragons, where if it wasn't for RG Snyman and Joshua Kenny, that game Leinster maybe lose that game to the Dragons. And that's a statement I don't think anybody has said since the good old days of Mike Ruddock back in before I was born. But for Leinster, bleeding through, having these new sung like unsung heroes, the likes of you mentioned, Rico Ioane has rediscovered himself. He was out of All Blacks contention. He wasn't in the All Black squad for the Nations Rugby Championship. He comes to Leinster. It starts off poor. Like media gets on his back, and I could also imagine there was whispers amongst Leinster fans that we've signed a dud. We've signed the next bloody Zane Kirshner. Like this is a guy who comes in and doesn't perform to the level of his reputation and expectation. And then in the second half of the season, Rico has rose to the challenge. And you look at like his confidence, this borderline arrogance, but he can back it up with so much skill. It kind of marries beautifully to the Leinster mindset of we are the best in club rugby. And I just think that it's worked out really, really well for all parties involved because he's going to go back to the Auckland Blues a better player. He's going to go back to New Zealand a better player. And he's going to go back to Dave Rennie in charge of New Zealand and go, where's my All Blacks cap? Have you forgot about me? Because he has been fantastic. And like even I'm a big fan of Joshua Kenny. Give him whatever name you want to give him, but the man from Presbury can play ball. Like he is a fantastic winger. I love him for many facets. Look at great highlight reel player, but also one thing that really shocked me: brilliant defensive player, great tackler of the ball, incredibly coachable, incredibly expendable as a rugby player. And I mean, there's this whole generation of younger, talented Leinster players that are either coming through the ranks now or have made first team appearances. I'm a big fan of Hugo McLaughlin, for example, Charlie Tector, Hugh Cooney. I love Hugh Cooney. I think that man could get a couple of Ireland caps anytime soon. There's an embarrassment of riches for Leinster, but they create this embarrassment of riches, and they've been bleeding through these players slowly but surely. And I think this year was an opportunity to try out a couple of them, while those more experienced, more higher reputational players, those Ireland internationals, those British and Irish internationals, were coming back slowly but surely. And yes, there was a bit of heartache with the European final, also a bit of heartache losing James Lowe and losing Luke McGrath as well. Let's not forget that Luke McGrath has played well over 200 matches for Leinster, is a real trooper, is a great saying for him, because that's what he is. He's a real trooper. But Leinster, while they're losing a couple of legends and maybe still need to break the hoodoo in Europe, which I no doubt we'll probably get onto more kind of in depth maybe, I think they're bringing through this new cast of characters, these new, to the rest of the provinces, these villains almost, that will kind of control Irish rugby. And I hope they do, because these players are talented. And I really am excited to see what Leinster have in the fold next season, because if they can build off what they did at the playoffs, and I will always highlight game against the Lions, that was a rugby show, and that was a masterclass in how to do attacking rugby, was that game against the Lions in the quarterfinal. So I'm really excited to see where Leinster go from here, because it's Leo's last season. He wants a send-off. He wants a double. He wants another star onto that badge. So I can't wait to see what Leinster do next season, because they're going to be a powerhouse like they always are.
Yeah, no, that's very well put. Yeah, it's a mad one. Keen Cullen says it'll be 12 years now when he departs next year as head coach. 32 years since he first represented Leinster as a Leinster schoolboy, I think. I think you can remember. I can just about remember that one. What kind of legacy does a man like that leave at a club like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, you said it there. I mean, 12 years in, I mean, look, to put it simply, honors as a coach, was it 6 Pro 14 / URC titles, one Champions Cup, 7 trophies in 11 years. Can you think of a single other coach that's won 7 trophies in 11 years? I can't off the top of my head. Even the mega clubs like Toulouse, I mean, really, they are the other mega club. I don't think they've won seven in 11
I
years,
think maybe
let
just
alone under
putting
one
across there.
coach.
I think I think Scott Robertson might have, because he won a load of Super Rugby titles in a row. So maybe he won more. I think he might have won more than seven in like that time span. But again, like I'm sorry for putting across there, Keane, and I understand that. Like I'm going to say that, but Leo Cullen is gonna he's gonna go down as one of the best coaches. Surely, probably the best Irish coach of all time at the very minimum, because he's a legend.
Absolutely. Well, and the other side of that is though, it's like, yes, Razor might have won a fair few Super Rugby, but it's not a serious rugby competition. There's only one. Like, there's only one. There's no kind of domestic European side of things. Like Leo over the 11 seasons reached at least the semi-final in every single domestic season and the semi-final in 10 of 11 seasons in Europe simultaneously. That's insane. That kind of consistency doesn't happen in sport. Can you think like there's no football team that does that. There's no other rugby team that does that except maybe Bar Toulouse. And even they had a really, really, really poor showing in Europe this year. So to do it on two fronts, and to be honest, playing on two fronts at a club level is kind of the second part of his job. His main job is to make players for the Irish team. That is his main remit. It's why the IRFU pay his wages. And it's hard to argue that he hasn't done a good job. I mean, not only did he take over a Leinster club that had gone through a very tough period under Matt O'Connor, um, but he's brought through Jameson Gibson Park, Doris McCarthy, Prendergast. None of these were household names or even Irish qualified when he took over. And now it's hard to imagine an Irish team without them. Um, he has turned a kind of slightly rough and ready Leinster that had some European success into the very model of professional rugby. You can hold Leinster up as this is how you're supposed to run a rugby team. And that I'm not being big headed about it as a Leinster fan. It's just like you get your shit together and you keep it in order. You're not necessarily roaring at players all the time, like Cheka did. You're not necessarily being the overly strict school master like Schmidt was, but just quietly managing everything, juggling the injuries, juggling the player minutes, budgets and salaries and selections and everything. And to keep your cool through most of it. Like, I, you'd rarely see him even slightly miffed. It happened occasionally, and it was always funny when it did in front of the press. But he he is to me what a head coach should be.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it probably goes underemphasized the effort of the two fronts. Like it's and in a way became a rod to beat him with when I think if Leinster were in a position in Europe where and I was only thinking about this when we lost again in Bilbao, if we'd won one of those finals and not gotten to the others, I think he'd almost gotten more plaudits than he has for
Oh,
getting to all
absolutely.
four of them. And
100%.
it feels counterintuitive, and yet you know, but to get to all those finals is incredible. It's the fact that there isn't one big rival because it hasn't even been Toulouse. There were years there, and this is why I went into the final with Toulouse oddly confident. I was the only one, and I was wrong. But there were years there where Leinster were beating Toulouse in quarterfinals and semifinals handily, like they were dispatching them, like they weren't a problem. Even with Antoine Dupont and Romain Ntamack on the field. To be able to do that in Europe and then maintain dominance in the URC, and like the URC, certainly when it was the Pro 12, it was a different competition, and you can argue the strengths and lack thereof, but to compete at such a high level in both competitions for so long, Leinster have advantages that are inherent, but there's a lot of rich people in the world who are really good at losing money. Leinster were a club that had advantages and under Leo Cullen took incredibly full advantage of them. And yeah, I think it's a testament to him. I think it'll be very interesting to see how it goes when he leaves, because I think it could be a case of that you don't know what you've got till it's gone, and there could be a rude awakening or a bit of a change there. I hope there isn't, but yeah, I think it's a testament to the man that he's managed to keep this ship so steady, and such a big ship steady for as long as he did. Um, but one more season to go, and we'll see if he can finish on a high. Um, I wanted to touch on before we wrapped up. Two things. I suppose there's one thing. This is a bit of a surprise, James, but I don't think there's anything I could spring on you that you wouldn't have a response ready for. We're going to talk about new caps in Ireland, but Leinster, obviously, their production line is phenomenal. They produce all these wonderful players, and two of them, I think it's two, are now
Yep.
leaving and heading west in the form of Kieran Frawley and Will Connors. Like, what's the feeling out west for these two lads to come along?
It's pure excitement. Now, look I'm a bit biased when I say this, but I love a 10 that can just take the game by the scruff of the neck. George Ford-esque, just drops a load of goals, takes the game back to its core basics and of a 10, what a 10 should be. And that's what Kieran Frawley is. And that's why I'm most excited. And I'm most excited because we have a double threat. We have Josh Ioane, who is this firecracker of an individual who expresses himself through rugby. I said before I came on here, he's the Poundland Richie Mwanga, but he came through a few years ago where the mold of an out half was, to be an inside centre himself, Sam Casello, Roma Intimac, Noah Lolaseo, like all of these guys that came through in a very similar time frame. Even Richie Mwanga, because he came through the Chiefs during kind of the COVID-ish period of rugby, where it was this weird Super Rugby Tasman era, which I hope we never ever go back to. And they just took the game, like they made the game running rugby. And you get Kieran Frawley, who is just regimented, very intelligent, reads the game inside and out, and witnessed it firsthand many a time. Like the game at the Dexcom Stadium when this new stand was open, Frawley came on, just turned the game all the way down for Leinster, because Leinster were getting flustered. Now, Leinster were going to win that game, I think, regardless, but Leinster were getting flustered a little bit. And then Frawley came in, said, lads, calm down, took the game, scored a try, played it fantastically, and, he's had that effect with Leinster. And yeah, it's a shame that he doesn't play 10 anymore. I don't blame Leo Cullen for picking both Prendergast and Byrne over Frawley because, well, Frawley's gone. And why would you give a man who's leaving game time? It's a bit counterintuitive. But I'm really excited for Frawley. And I'm excited for Connors because we have just like this amazing, we have a very, very good back row. Obviously, Sean Jansen, who's on the Ireland tour, I really hope he gets a test. I'd love to see him go up against Japan, where he goes up against Michael Leach and a Mafi. Like, I'd love to see that because he is a real energetic New Zealander. He's a Kiwi and back row through and through, and you can tell that from the way he plays rugby. And we've got Hurley Langton, we've got Cian Prendergast, who I think is a fantastic leader, and I hope spends a bit more time in and around the Ireland camp, just because the way he liaisons with refs. I think we should teach that more to players instead of effing and blinding and shouting and, which whatever you have for a player. Obviously, a rugby player is going to be emotional like any player. Prendergast is fantastic at liaisoning with refs, getting it down to kind of a human on human level. And he's just so good at geeing up a group of players because Connacht, I mean, we won 2 of our opening 10 games. We were out of it at the beginning of the year, and we ended up getting in the playoffs somehow. And it was all because of the leadership of not only Lancaster and the experienced players in the group, but also Prendergast. Prendergast took the group together and gelled them together. And Connors has a fistful of Ireland caps, loads of experience in a as mentioned by Keane earlier, the way you should run a rugby club, or a way you should run a team or a business in general. This goes beyond sport. Leinster transcends sport in a way that they just run stuff so regimentedly. And yes, the school system is a big help to that, but Leinster manage the school system and micromanage everything to its little detail, where they have brilliant facilities for its sub-academy team. Like, that is what we are talking about when we deal with Leinster. And having a guy who's gone through that system to come to Connacht to help out the young players, and in particular 2 young lads, I want to give a shout out to Bobby Parra and Aina McCarthy, who I think should get the chances to play for Connacht. Both lads play under 20 levels, both lads are back row. They're going to learn off a man who has, albeit, yes, he's not Van der Fleer, he's not Conan, he's not Doris. He's not Baird, but what he is he's a man who has won trophies with Leinster before, and he's won a number of them. So to get those guys in is fantastic. And also, as well, on the less experienced note, getting players in, because Billy Bowen and Sam Illo, I think Illo played twice for Leinster. Obviously, Bowen never played at all. Bowen's a Newbridge man. Illo is a man of Wesley, I believe. He's no Wesleyan. And even like Daniel Ryan, who also came through the Leinster skill system. And going back even years and years, God, when we won the Pro 12, bloody Niai Adialokin, he was the Leinster lad. Quinn Rue was a Leinster lad. Like, these players we had were from Leinster and didn't get the chance and came to Connacht looking for an opportunity. So getting lads who have been basically primed and prepped to play senior rugby at such a young age to come over. It's the same thing for Jerry Kerr. And it's even the same thing for Connolly, because Connolly, who was a Kinvara man through and through, right proper Galway countryman, but he spent time up in bloody Terranure. And he's played in an environment where you're playing against lads who are in the Leinster Academy, and they're getting, you're learning and coming and getting that osmosis of becoming a better rugby player, coming back to Connacht to teach the players that and to kind of mold it into one squad. It leaves you kind of excited. Yes, we probably will get tonked in the Champions Cup by a French team by 40 points. Yes, we'll probably get a hiding away from home. Yeah, we might not make the playoffs next year, but you know what? We're building something which in 5 or 10 years' time you can kind of look at and go, Connacht aren't the fourth province of Ireland. They're equals with every single other province in Ireland.
Yeah, brilliantly said. It's a big vibe going into the summer now. Keen, we have some other players named by James there, Billy Bowen, Sam Illo. We already had, Darren Ray. I know he's already been in there before, but he's another Connacht man. And to talk of, it's an unfortunate reality of rugby that one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. We've got Bryn Ward and Zach Ward coming in now for the injured Caolan Doris and Tommy O'Brien, with Dan Sheehan moving into the captaincy role. It could be a really interesting summer for some of these lads down under.
Oh, it certainly could. Yeah, I have to just a shout out for a second to a man who hasn't had a summer tour in I think 3 years now. I mean, poor Doris. Like, he can't catch a break when it comes to either that or he has Disneyland booked every year. I don't know. But one way or the other, like, so yeah, my heart goes out to him. It really does. He should get to go on one stage. And frankly, this one sounds like a bit of a cracker, to be honest. I mean, I know it's the new Nations Championship and not everyone's very excited about it. I'm probably not hugely excited about it myself. And the Japan match is like, yeah, Japan, that'll be fine. But the Australia match, like, the Lions test series showed us, like, Australia are not going to be any slouches at home. It's not going to be an easy game. They're certainly going to give it guns, like. But I think the real cherry there is New Zealand and Eden Park. I think this is why it was one of the reasons why we've seen a fairly heavy smattering of very experienced players into that selection. And they weren't going to be taking this as a development tour a la French selection, which always ends up with the Southern Hemisphere lads tearing their hair out, going, "Why are you not sending the good players?" And they'll still actually give them quite a good run, and sometimes even take one. Like, Andy Farrell is a man who likes to win rugby games. Andy Farrell is a man who really likes to win important rugby games. He understands the value of these totemic games, the kind of the monoliths of potential that exist in world rugby, and being the team to beat New Zealand in Eden Park is the biggest monolith in world rugby. You have to have a crack at it. So you've got 2 games to lead up to it as well, which is ideal. You're probably going to go fairly strong with the first game against Australia. A smattering of the younger lads with maybe kind of the higher end of caps of the younger lads. You probably give a fairly big rotation then for the Japan game. I think everyone will pretty much get a run in that. And then I think you might see a couple of surprises into the top game. But I mean, looking across it, I was looking at it before and looking at the players who have 20 caps or fewer. In the forwards, you got Bowen, Clarkson, Illo, Izuchukwu, Jansen, Lockman, Murray, sorry, Dara Murray to be specific. Prendergast, Keane. Uh, so many people have to be careful of them. So many brothers, man. So many brothers. Tom Stewart, Nick Timoney, and Bryn Ward. That's just the forwards, under 20 caps. In the backs, you got Balakoon, Harry Byrne, Nathan Doak, Kieran Frawley, Jimmy O'Brien, Jamie Osborne, Sam Prendergast, and Zach Ward. That is a fine selection of players. And they are young for the most part. And they're all kind of either no caps or fewer than 20. Like there's a fairly strong development vibe still to this, despite there being some real stalwarts throughout. It's going to be really interesting to see how that balances out for the third game. I think the first game is kind of it's Australia. It's going to be fairly strong. Um, Japan, very much a mix. Sorry, very much a transition from the first to turn over the whole team, and then the third game, it's going to be anyone who's there is going to be there on merit. But I think we could see a surprise or two.
That's a fantastic lead up. I'm excited for this one. I can't wait. Yeah, it's gonna be a really interesting one. Um, yeah, brilliant. So we'll hope for some really interesting selections. We'll hope for some great results, and maybe if we're really lucky, we might get the crown of crowns out of Eden Park. But I think on a hot day in Dublin, I think that's about all we can ask of the two lads today. So my massive thanks to Keane, my massive thanks to James. Thanks for joining me today, lads. Hold down the fort. I'm not entirely sure when we'll be back as a podcast, but when we are, we'll let you know. Until then, take it easy.